Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show trying to make the world safer for ADHDers. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I'm also the father of a couple of ADHD kids. And I married into an ADHD rich family, and I also apparently married a partner who's ADHD. And recently, and you may have all seen this already, but the person who has been presented to the world as the paradigm, the model for the neurotypical parent, the one who's always in charge and always planning ahead and always making sure that all these rascally ADHD people get out of the house with their shoes and socks and other things that they need for the day, all prepared and ready to go, and that they are always in control and always planning ahead, and sometimes get frustrated because they feel like they're raising an extra child because their partner's got ADHD. And she was presented as a very typical, somewhat over controlled, slightly compulsive individual who had to make up for her lovable husband's ADHD and his and you've probably seen some of the videos that they do on social media and that sort of thing. And then he's a musician who also somehow I think is in advertising. But anyway, he makes a living in spite of ADHD, or maybe because of ADHD. But she was always presented as the one who kind of kept him, from falling apart or that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, and they had a best-selling book, something about ADHD is awesome. And there's more. There's a subtitle, but I don't have that in my head right now. But anyway, Penn and Kim Holderness, the archetypical ADHD couple. He's got ADHD. She's your typical neurotypical parent. And then she goes and gets herself diagnosed with ADHD. And this is, well, I'm sure it's embarrassing for her because, she's always been presented as the rock, the person who holds the family together and handles all the details and all that sort of thing that our ADHD crew cannot handle. And this comes in a wave of another trend that we're starting to see in ADHD is that women are getting diagnosed at a much higher rate. And frankly, it's always been kind of, and I didn't have anything to do with it, it wasn't my fault, but the science has always been primarily focused on males with ADHD, not because of prejudice or anything, but because ADHD boys tend to be hyperactive, and that when they trash at school classroom in 7th grade or something, then, or probably more likely 2nd grade, but when they do that sort of thing, it gets a lot more attention. It is easier to, and it's very easy to diagnose. You don't even really need to do anything other than kind of rule out other things like learning disabilities and that sort of stuff. But you don't, it commands a lot of attention. Whereas women tend to be more inattentive type, tend to be quietly exerting a maximum amount of control, and they're very rarely overtly hyperactive. That also makes it it's hard to diagnose, okay? And frankly, most women who are evaluated psychologically or psychiatrically, are most often diagnosed with something like obsessive compulsive disorder or anxiety disorder with obsessive compulsive features or something like that. They have been girls in our culture, women have been trained as caregivers mostly and have uh, always been supposed to be ladylike, I guess would be the best way to put it, that they don't do gross stuff, like little boys just love doing gross stuff, and girls don't do that. Girls are proper. Girls take care of things, and that sort of model means that a lot of times they've got problems, but nobody knows about it because they're not going to tell anybody, and they're trying very hard not to show any difficulties. But that also means you're going to have some problems with um, doing an evaluation. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, I've looked at some of the things that have been proposed as evaluation tools for women who may, or females, I guess, in general, who may or may not be ADHD, and it's difficult. I mean, and the things I've seen are not impressive, because they don't clearly distinguish between ADHD and an anxiety disorder. Uh, but I'm sure we'll keep working on it, and eventually we'll get it right. But it was just amazing to me that this lady. I'm amazed at whoever diagnosed her. First of all, that must have been a rough thing to do. When you think about, like, originally I was going to be talking about a little bit about perimenopause, and I mean the deal with women also is estrogen is a huge player in ADHD symptoms. Low estrogen, high ADHD symptoms. High estrogen, lower ADHD symptoms. And of course, when we're talking about menopause, we're talking about estrogen going down. And that means the symptoms of ADHD are way more prominent. Okay, so the diagnosis, okay, I mean, let's talk about, first of all, the kind of the symptoms that you would then see. And, there are the usual cognitive or thinking or executive function kinds of things like forgetting details, being forgetful, having difficulties with organization, not following through, being highly distractible. All those things start to become stronger and harder to control. I mean, we're talking about people who have spent a long time developing control mechanisms and holding it in and that sort of thing. And now all of a sudden, everything they've been trying to hold in gets worse. So it's harder. And, some of it is, well, frankly, some of it is just age. When your brain gets a little older, you start to have more troubles with working memory in general, and you start to also, you walk into a room and you go, what did I come here for? I forget. Okay. And most of the time it's just ha ha ha, but it can get to the point where it's a real problem. And then the other things that are more noticeable are feeling overwhelmed, because it's like, okay, I've had this under control for so long, and now it's worse, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep it out of everybody's awareness, shall we say. And so you get the overwhelm. You also have an increase in kind of rejection sensitivity, where I'm overreacting, or women are overreacting to slights, real and imagined. Just way more sensitive. Oh my God, do you mean? You think I did that? Kind of thing, which is not, it's not what you expect from a proper lady. And that's what little girls are told they're supposed to be. So we have that going on. Estrogen is down, but ADHD symptoms are up high. I know that most husbands are familiar with, a certain cycle that you have to get used to, and just grit your teeth for 1 week, a month or so, and then everything's okay. And I don't want to sound chauvinistic or anything like that. It's just biology, and what are you going to do? You need to do the best you can, like we all do. Okay, other things that you see around perimenopause and that make diagnoses a little bit easier is that you have to see more impulsivity. You have to see more high risk behaviors. No, I don't really want to go riding motorcycles with you today, that sort of thing. And I definitely don't want to climb up that cliff. But you have more high risk behaviors. Sometimes this is the time of life where addiction starts to be an issue. It probably was always pretty close anyway, but um, with the increase in the whole um, impulse tendencies of ADHD being stronger, um, addiction becomes more of a possibility. Glass of wine at dinner becomes two or three, and maybe a couple watching TV, or that sort of thing. And also, there's a tendency to become more controlling and demanding, which is out of character for what you're used to anyway. For as the neurotypical husband, or maybe you're even worse if you're the ADHD husband, and you always kind of depended on her to keep things under control. And now you got to do something different. You've got to come through and try to figure out how to be organized and that sort of thing. And another thing that frequently happens is some physical hypersensitivity, like all of a sudden labels and clothes or certain kinds of, wool sweaters. Oh, can't stand wearing those. And other things like that become an issue. So the bottom line with all of this, though, is that it's difficult to make this diagnosis. And there aren't a lot of us who've seen a lot of females to diagnose, frankly, because, when you're in private practice or whatever comes through the door is what you see, within reason, of course. And so not many young ladies have been evaluated by most of us. But we'll pick it up. We'll get better as things go on. But that's one of the things that we have to watch out for. Because it's way easier to just say anxiety disorder with some compulsive features than it is to say, no, I think we got a neurologic condition here, and it's going to take us a little more time to get it diagnosed, but we will do that. And the thing this does, though, it also changes the whole family dynamic. When you think about people being married for 20 or 30 years, there are still some of us who've been married for longer than that. But when married couples develop a certain rhythm, a certain pattern for how they do things, and then all of a sudden things change, and there's a little more tension and a little more emotion than there has been in the past. And you adapt and adjust. That's what we all have to do. and stay focused on, you know, I married this person for a lot of different reasons. And she's still that person, just acting a little differently now. But, none of us age in a direct line. We're this way and we're just going to stay that way throughout our whole life. There are ups and downs, changes. You get older, things hurt. You get older, you're a little slower. You get lower, your balance maybe not be so great. There are all sorts of things that happen, and you have to hang together based on remembering, okay, this has been a good long pull we've had together, and let's keep it going, and we'll get through this, and eventually we'll both adapt to whatever changes there are. And nobody is going to stay the same way throughout their entire lives. It just doesn't happen. We have people, you change all the time. And the people who have the most trouble with staying married, is that they can't adapt to the changes that their spouse is making, or even or they don't typically notice the changes in the way they're reacting and thinking about things and behaving. And I figure old Kim will handle things herself, and she and her husband seem pretty, pretty comfortable with each other, and that's probably will help them get through all this. And there is no way anybody's going to blame her for being diagnosed with ADHD after all these years. It's just, it's not her fault. It's not, no, it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way things work sometimes. So my best to old Kim out there in the world, and I hope she figures out exactly what she wants to do about this new situation, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of funny videos out of it, and why not? Okay. So that's me for this week. I am Dr. Terry James Gingrass. This is still Dr. G's ADHD Chat. Oh, we're still trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I have a podcast at terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there. You can also sign up for an intake interview, and we can talk about if I can help you with some coaching. I do a lot of executive coaching, and I do a lot of that's with executives with ADHD, and I do a lot of parenting stuff, and occasionally some marital stuff with ADHDers. So keep that in mind, and we will catch you next week. And in the meantime, I appreciate the absurdity of life.